Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we are making bread pudding, a vegan bread pudding, and it's going to be mapley and delicious. So I have never made bread pudding before, but one of you guys asked me to try to make a recipe. And I thought, you know what, I've always heard about it, but I've never actually made it, and it just looks delicious. So what I did find is that they are loaded with tons and tons of butter and sugar. Like, I mean, tons. Like some people even butter each and every slice of bread before they cut it up. So I don't know if they feel like it offers that much more flavor, but I'm not willing to put that much fat into my dessert. So I am going to go with more sugar than I'm comfortable with, because again, like, it's not just me eating it. And if I'm going to make it for myself, I would cut down the sugar considerably because my palate is okay with that. But other people are not going to like it. So what's the point? I mean, we're trying to encourage people to eat plant-based and not discourage them. And if we offer them something that is too healthy, they're probably not going to have it. They're going to be like, this is not dessert, I'm sorry. So anyway, I am adding more sugar than I'm comfortable with because I'm not adding all the fat in that it normally has. So I feel better about that. And I still want it to be ooey gooey and flavorful. And you need the sugar to add that gooiness to the bread pudding. Another way that you can cut down the fat even more and the calories is I'm using a can of coconut milk. You do not have to use coconut milk. I'm just using it just because dessert is not made all the time and I'm just splurging. But you can definitely make it with just any plain milk and it will turn out perfect. So keep that in mind. You can cut down the calories considerably if you just take out that can of coconut milk, and it will still be very flavorful without it. I just wanted to kick it up a notch. Sorry, you guys can hear my cat eating in the background. You know, it's either the cat or the dog. Anyway, so yeah, that's another tip. If you wanted to cut down the calories further, if you feel like it's too rich, then get rid of that can of coconut milk and then just replace it with regular milk. So yeah, very simple ingredients. As far as the nuts go, that is also going to add more fat. But since I didn't add the butter, I'm not feeling guilty about adding the nuts in. I am putting pecans in, pecans, I don't know how you say it. I like pecans because they're very flavorful. You don't need that many of them. You could chop them up, but I like the way they look when they're halved and really pretty. So I, used like 1/3 of a cup. You can add more, you can add less. I'll show you the little packet that I bought, and I still have some left over for another dish. But it adds a really nice flavor to it and just that crunch, because you do want something crunchy in it. So if you don't like pecans, like, pick another nut. I don't know, whatever you prefer. But I do suggest you add even just a little bit, a little sprinkling of it. So yeah, and then I just got just plain, raisins, any kind of raisin I'm sure will do. And just, again, to add a little more flavor and pizzazz to the dish, because really it's just bread and milk, right? Like, you need to add something to it. And then because the Canadian in me says we need to add maple syrup, there's maple syrup in it as well. So I drizzled some maple syrup on it, and you could do like 1/4 cup to 1/3 of a cup in total. And I like to add that in because it adds a lot of depth of flavor. It's also nutritious. So just make sure it's real maple syrup and not just like that sugary candy kind of maple syrup. The Canadian in me cringes when people pour that fake stuff all over things. So yeah, that's another tip. You could add it in, you can take it out. It's up to you. If you want to decrease the sugar content, then don't put the maple in, or if you don't like the flavor of maple, then don't put it in. But if you do, please put the real stuff in. So yeah, really simple. The bread that I used was a super, super healthy one. This is also why I am adding in the sugar quantity, and I'll have the whole breakdown of the recipe in the description box for you. Because if it was like a white bread that was already had sugar in it, that's fine. Probably you can get away with not adding as much, but because it's a really hearty whole grain, there's like millet in it. It was a really healthy bread. And that's what I used in it. I decided that it's probably best to add a little more sugar because it is on the healthier side of bread. Versus just a plain, like baguette or something. If you do a baguette, you probably don't need as much sugar. Any kind of crusty bread will do. Just make sure that it's a little stale, or you can cut it up and leave it on a tray overnight and it'll get nice and crusty. I like to go to the clearance bread section at the grocery store because they always have day-old bread there. I guess a lot of people like me are looking for it for like my vegan stuffing, you know, things like that. So they always have bread there, and it's still fresh and it's still good, but it is day old, so they're not going to put it on the shelves anymore. They have like a separate section, and every grocery store in the area has one, so I really like that. So I just go there and pick up bread at like 50% off, and I'm good to go. Okay guys, so I'm just going to show you all of the items that you will need in order to make this quick and easy recipe. You're just going to need a crusty bread, and about this size was perfect for me. I think it was about £1, and this is a hearty and really healthy bread. You can use any type of stale bread that you can find or that you prefer. And then I just have my baking dish. I'm using a glass ovenware dish. 1 can of coconut milk, but you can replace this with regular milk if you don't want it to be higher in fat. And I would go ahead and just use a full fat coconut because you're going to get that real creaminess in the recipe. And then raisins are optional, but I do like adding some of these Sultana raisins in. It adds a lot of depth of flavor and it's really yummy. And pure maple syrup, make sure you get the real stuff. And any milk that you have on hand. I happen to have this one that's vanilla. Sometimes I use it with plain. It's not a big deal, anything you have. And a cornstarch, and try to opt for organic if you can find it. And then pecans, so you can use the amount that you are comfortable with. I used about half of this pack, maybe a little bit more than half, but pecans are a great addition to this dish. And yeah, so a super easy recipe to whip up, and it does not require a ton of ingredients. So you're just going to go ahead and chop up your bread in cubes. Try to make them into smaller cubes, and that way it will be just easier when you are serving it later and you're eating it if it's smaller pieces. So some people like to use regular sliced bread for this recipe, and some people like to use a heartier bread like how I'm using. So mine is stale, but yet it's still a little bit soft, as you can see. So it's just not super fresh. This is a great way of using bread that maybe you don't particularly want to eat because it has gone a little bit stale, a little bit off in texture. So you can, you know, whip it up into a dessert like this, and it will be perfect and delicious, and it will be a no waste meal as well. So I'm throwing all of the pieces in the container just for now, just so that I have more space to do my milk mixture. But afterward, I'm going to take out half of it, and that way I can start assembling with half of the bread, and then I will add in the other half after. I'm also adding cinnamon. I forgot to show you guys. That is also the star ingredient of this recipe. Have some yummy cinnamon. So I'm just going ahead and adding some milk into a medium-sized bowl, and then we can go ahead and add in the sugar. I'm using coconut sugar, but you can use any type of sugar that you prefer, you have on hand. A lot of people use brown sugar, and that's fine too. And then you're going to go ahead and add your cinnamon and your cornstarch, and you're going to give it a nice good mix. So after everything is nice and mixed in, I'm going to pop it into the microwave for about 2 to 2.5 minutes. And my microwave is quite strong. It's on high, so you be the judge of how long you need to put yours in for. But you want it nice and warm, but not, you know, over bubbly and kind of boiling over to that point. Like, you just want it nice and warm. And then you're going to go ahead and give it a mix when it comes out of the microwave, and you're going to put in your coconut can in. It's going to break down all of those chunks if you have chunks in there. And yeah, it's just nice and warm, and it's going to give an opportunity to that cornstarch to start thickening up. So yeah, I just give it a nice mix. I combine everything again, and then my mixture is going to be ready to pour over my bread. So how I decided to assemble mine was I put half of the bread in the pan, I drizzled some pure maple syrup on top, I put a little bit of raisins and a little bit of the pecans, and then I went ahead and added in the last layer of the bread on top of that, and then I did the same thing, a drizzle of maple syrup, some more raisins, and some more pecans on top. So you're going to want to add that milk mixture right on top, and then I use a wooden spoon and I kind of flatten it all out so that everything gets nice and coated in the milk, and it's going to sit for at least 5 minutes, maybe even 10 minutes before I pop it into the oven. I just want all of the bread to absorb some of that milk and start to get soft, and then I'm going to pop it into the oven and cook it up. And again, you have to be the judge of your oven and how long you are going to be putting it in for. So I baked mine for 60 minutes, but that is my preference. It's still soft and still like a pudding consistency, but I don't like it super mushy and runny. So you have to know what consistency you like better. I like it a little bit more firmed up. I like the top a little bit more cooked up and golden. So 60 minutes was perfect for me in my oven, but I would check at the 50-minute mark, and then you can decide if you want to bake it a little bit longer or if it's already baked enough for you. Again, the bread that you're using is also going to dictate how long it's going to take to bake. Mine is a very crusty, rustic bread, so I found that mine took a little bit longer to cook up. So this is how it turned out. It looked super delicious, very yummy. This was such an easy dessert to make. And again, it's a no waste meal. So if you have any bread that you need to use up, this is a great recipe. I think a lot of people would like it, especially during the winter, because it's cozy and comforting. And I really enjoyed it. So I'm really happy that one of my followers asked me to make it. It's something that I never made before and always wanted to, but I just had to figure out how to, omit certain things because I wanted to make it vegan and also a little bit lower in calories and fat. So it's not a skinny dessert by any means. This is a high calorie dessert, but it can be way, way more high calorie. So I did my best to still find the balance and make sure that it was yummy and delicious, that it was still a dessert, but it wasn't super, super crazy in calories. So yeah, this is how it turned out, and I just ate it while it was hot. It's kind of soft and gooey and yummy, but not a true pudding consistency. Also depends on what bread you are using. Because I used a crusty bread, this is how mine turned out. If you use a sliced bread, your consistency is going to be different, so just keep that in mind. So thanks so much for being here this week, guys. Health, joy, and positive vibes to each and every one of you, and I will see you in the next video.